The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than any city on Earth, home to thousands of different alien creatures from across the galaxy. For 3,000 years, this place had been the center of peace between 47 different alien races. They called themselves the Galactic Council. Commander Jake Sullivan stood at the window of his ship, the Horizon, watching the station grow larger as they approached. He had never seen anything like it. The station looked like a giant metal flower, with dozens of arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm was as big as a skyscraper and glowed with different colored lights. "Amazing, isn't it?" said Dr. Lisa Martinez, stepping up beside him. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms. Her eyes were wide with wonder as she looked at the station. "It's incredible," Jake replied. "Hard to believe we're really here." Behind them, Captain Ben Taylor was checking his equipment one more time. He was a military man, always ready for trouble. "I still think we should have brought more ships," he said. Ambassador Claire Johnson smiled at him. "We're here to make friends, not enemies. One ship shows we come in peace." Jake nodded. After years of preparation, humanity was finally making official contact with the galactic community. Earth had discovered faster-than-light travel only 5 years ago. Now they were ready to take their place among the stars. "Incoming transmission," said the ship's computer. The main screen lit up, showing a creature that looked like a giant insect. It had 4 arms and large black eyes. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound cold and mechanical. "Human vessel, you will follow the marked path to Docking Bay 77. Do not deviate from this path. Any change in course will be seen as hostile action." Jake frowned. This wasn't the welcome he had expected. "Understood, Control. Following marked path now." The Horizon moved slowly toward the station. Jake noticed that other ships kept their distance. Alien vessels that had been moving freely around the station suddenly changed course to avoid them. "That's strange," Lisa said. "It's like they're afraid of us." "Maybe they're just being careful," Claire suggested, but she looked worried too. They docked at the assigned bay and prepared to leave their ship. Jake wore his best dress uniform. The others had put on their finest clothes. This was supposed to be a historic moment. The airlock opened with a hiss. Beyond it was a long metal corridor with bright lights. Waiting for them were 6 alien guards. They looked like the insect creature from the screen, but bigger. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Humans, you will come with us," said the lead guard. "You will not touch anything. You will not speak unless spoken to." Jake felt his heart sink. This was not how diplomats were usually treated. "I'm Commander Sullivan. We're here for the scheduled meeting with the Council." "We know who you are," the guard replied. "Follow." They walked through corridors filled with amazing sights. Aliens of every shape and size moved past them. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled in the light. Others were made of what seemed like living gas, floating in special suits. Jake saw creatures with tentacles, others with multiple heads, and some that looked like walking plants. But every single one of them stopped and stared when the humans passed by. Some backed away. Others pointed and whispered to each other in languages the translator couldn't understand. "They're scared of us," Ben whispered to Jake. "But why?" Jake whispered back. The guards led them to a section of the station that felt different. The walls were thicker here, and Jake noticed that they passed through several security checkpoints. Each checkpoint had heavy blast doors and more guards. Finally, they reached a waiting area. It was comfortable but felt more like a prison cell. The walls were made of some kind of energy field that glowed faintly blue. "You will wait here," the lead guard said. "The Council will see you when they are ready." Hours passed. Jake and his team sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. This was nothing like what they had planned for. Earth's leaders had expected ceremonies, speeches, and celebration. Instead, they were being treated like dangerous criminals. Finally, the energy field disappeared and different guards arrived. These ones looked like tall, thin humans, but their skin was pale blue, and they had large silver eyes. "The Council will see you now," one of them said in a voice like singing wind. They were led into the largest room Jake had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared in darkness. Around the walls were seats arranged in a huge circle, and in each seat sat a different kind of alien creature. At the center of the room was a platform with 4 chairs. The humans were directed to sit while their guards took positions around them. A voice boomed from all directions at once. "Humans of the planet Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council." Jake stood up. "Thank you for this honor. We come in peace, hoping to join the galactic community as friends and partners." A creature made of living crystal spoke next. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "You have been observed. You have been studied. You have been classified." "Classified?" Claire asked, standing up beside Jake. Another alien, this one looking like a cloud of stars, floated forward. "In 3,000 years of peace, we have developed a system to evaluate new species. We classify them by the threat they pose to galactic civilization." Jake felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. "What classification have you given humanity?" The crystal creature's light grew brighter. "You are the first species in 800 years to receive this classification. You have been designated Category Red." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked, though her voice showed she was afraid to know. "Category Red," the star cloud being explained, "means you are considered an existential threat to all life in the galaxy. Category Red species are too dangerous to be allowed freedom among the stars." The room fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Around them, dozens of alien eyes watched and waited. Ben was the first to speak. "That's impossible. We came here in peace. We want to be friends." "Your intentions may be peaceful," the crystal being replied, "but your nature is not. You are unlike any species we have encountered. You are unpredictable, aggressive, and adaptable in ways that threaten the stability of our civilization." Jake felt the weight of their words. Humanity had dreamed of joining the stars, of finding friends among the alien races. Instead, they had found fear and suspicion. "What happens now?" he asked. The insect-like guard commander stepped forward. "Now we decide what to do with you." Dr. Lisa Martinez stood up from her chair, anger flashing in her eyes. "This is wrong. You can't judge an entire species based on fear and assumptions. We demand to know exactly why you've classified us this way." The crystal being, who had introduced itself as High Arbiter Zalenth, seemed to pulse with light. "Demands? Already you show the aggressive nature that concerns us." "It's not aggression, it's justice," Claire said, stepping beside Lisa. "Every species deserves a fair hearing. Even your own laws must provide for that." Around the great chamber, aliens whispered to each other in dozens of different languages. The sound was like wind through strange trees. Finally, a new voice spoke from the shadows. "The human speaks truth." The voice belonged to something Jake couldn't see clearly, just a shifting darkness that seemed to absorb light. "Ancient law requires a formal hearing for Category Red classifications. It has been centuries since this was needed, but the law still stands." High Arbiter Zalenth's light dimmed slightly. "Very well. We will convene a classification hearing, but understand, humans, such hearings rarely change the outcome." 3 days later, the humans sat in a smaller chamber facing a panel of 5 council judges. Each judge represented a different type of alien civilization. Jake recognized the Crystal Arbiter and the insect-like commander Vextar. The others were new to him. "Let the record show," began a floating creature that looked like a jellyfish made of electricity, "that this is the first Category Red hearing in 837 years. Commander Vextar activated a holographic display in the center of the room. "We present our evidence against the species known as humanity." The first image showed Earth's solar system, with lines and numbers floating around it. "Observation began 43 of your years ago, when humanity first achieved nuclear capability. What we found disturbed us." More images appeared. Jake saw rockets launching from Earth, satellites spreading through space, and the first human moon landing. But the way the aliens presented it made it all look threatening and wrong. "First evidence," Vextar continued, "your method of achieving faster-than-light travel. Every civilized species discovers FTL through careful study of subspace harmonics and dimensional physics. You achieved it through what you call brute force engineering. You simply kept making your engines bigger and more powerful until you broke through the speed of light barrier. Ben frowned. What's wrong with that? We got results. Results achieved through chaos rather than understanding, replied the jellyfish creature. This shows a dangerous disregard for natural law and established scientific method. The hologram changed to show human military exercises. Jake watched soldiers training, tanks moving across deserts, and fighter jets in formation. Second evidence, Vextar said, your military doctrine. Observe. The display showed a comparison between human military tactics and those of other species. Alien armies moved in perfect formation, following precise patterns that looked like dances. Human forces moved in ways that seemed random and chaotic. Every civilized species developed standardized military protocols, the electric jellyfish explained. Predictable patterns that allow for controlled conflict resolution. Your species emphasizes something you call adaptability and thinking outside the box. This makes you impossible to predict or control. Lisa stood up. Those aren't bad things. Adaptability helps us solve problems and survive in difficult situations. Exactly our point, Zalanth replied with a sound like breaking crystal. You see these as virtues. We see them as evidence of dangerous instability. The worst evidence came next. The hologram showed scenes from human history, wars, conquests, and destruction. Jake watched in growing horror as the aliens displayed humanity's darkest moments. Third evidence, Vextar announced. Your species' history of conflict and rapid technological advancement through warfare. The display showed how human technology had advanced during World War II, jumping forward decades in just a few years. It showed the Cold War arms race where two human nations had competed to build enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet multiple times over. Most species take thousands of years to develop advanced weapons, the shadow creature judge whispered from its corner. You did it in decades, driven by conflict with yourselves. Claire tried to defend humanity. Yes, we've had conflicts, but we've also had periods of peace and cooperation. We've created art, music, and literature. We've cured diseases and explored our world with curiosity. Not just for war. Show them the cultural analysis, Zalanth ordered. New images appeared, showing human movies, books, and television shows. But again, the aliens focused on the parts that made humans look dangerous. Your entertainment glorifies conflict, Vextar explained. You create stories about impossible odds being overcome through violence and determination. You celebrate what you call heroes who break rules to achieve their goals. And look at this, the electric jellyfish added, showing footage of human sports. You compete against each other in ritualized combat for entertainment. Even your games involve conquest and domination. Jake felt sick watching it all. Everything that made humans special, their creativity, determination, and refusal to give up, was being twisted into evidence of their danger. Your analysis is incomplete, Lisa said desperately. You're only looking at our negatives. What about our capacity for love, sacrifice, and cooperation? What about our desire to explore and learn? We have observed these traits, Zalanth admitted. But they concern us even more. What? Claire gasped. How can love and sacrifice be threatening? Because they make you unpredictable, the shadow creature whispered. A species driven by logic can be understood and negotiated with. But your emotions cause you to make choices that benefit others at the cost of yourselves. This is not rational behavior. You call it sacrifice, Vextar added. We call it evidence of psychological instability. No sane species would deliberately harm itself to help others. The electric jellyfish floated closer. And your curiosity is perhaps the most dangerous trait of all. Most species are content with their place in the galaxy. You constantly push boundaries, explore forbidden areas, and ask questions that should not be asked. Jake realized with growing despair that everything humans saw as their best qualities, the aliens saw as proof of their danger. Their creativity was chaos. Their determination was aggression. Their love was instability. The evidence is clear, Zalanth announced. Humanity possesses traits that make them incompatible with galactic civilization. They cannot be controlled, predicted, or contained through normal means. Around the chamber, other alien observers nodded in agreement. Jake noticed that many of them were already wearing what looked like military uniforms. Have you made a decision? Claire asked quietly. Several species have already begun military preparations, Vextar admitted. The Kethmori war fleet is mobilizing. The machine species known as the synthesis is calculating invasion probabilities. If we declare you Category Red permanently, they will act. Act how? Ben asked, though Jake could see in his eyes that he already knew. Category Red species that cannot be contained, the shadow creature whispered, are eliminated completely. Homeworld colonies, all ships and settlements. The galaxy cannot risk contamination by a truly dangerous species. The chamber fell silent. Jake felt the weight of 6 billion human lives resting on his shoulders. Everything they had hoped for, friendship among the stars, a place in the galactic community, a bright future for humanity, was crumbling around them. However, Zalinth said finally, ancient law provides one final option. It has not been used in over 1,000 years, but it exists. What option? Jake asked, though he was afraid to hope. The gauntlet, the crystal being replied. A series of tests to prove that a Category Red species can overcome its dangerous nature. If you succeed, your classification may be changed. And if we fail? Lisa asked. Then the military fleets waiting at the edge of the system will ensure that humanity never threatens the galaxy again. The emergency session of the United Nations was unlike anything in human history. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a table surrounded by world leaders, all of them trying to process the impossible news that had arrived from Nexus Prime. Let me understand this correctly, said the British Prime Minister. Aliens have been watching us for 40 years and they think we're so dangerous they might destroy Earth? General Peter Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, slammed his fist on the table. This is exactly why we should have sent a military fleet instead of diplomats. They see weakness and mistake it for an opportunity to attack us first. Secretary of State Maria Rodriguez shook her head. General, that kind of thinking is probably exactly why they classified us as Category Red. We need diplomatic solutions, not military ones. Diplomatic solutions? The general shot back. They're talking about wiping out our entire species. President Carter raised her hand for silence. What we need is information. What exactly do we know about these aliens and their capabilities? Dr. Patricia Webb, the head of the Alien Studies Division, activated a holographic display. Our intelligence is limited, but what we've learned is concerning. The Galactic Council represents 47 different species with technology far beyond ours. They've maintained peace for 3,000 years through their threat classification system. And they put us at the highest threat level, the president said grimly. What about the other ships Jake mentioned? The ones preparing for war? We've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of our solar system, reported Admiral Scott Coleman from the Space Defense Command. At least 12 large vessels, possibly more. They're maintaining distance, but they're definitely watching us. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Jake Sullivan and his team were learning more disturbing news. They had been moved to better quarters, but the energy barriers around their section reminded them they were still prisoners. I've been reviewing the historical records they gave us access to, Lisa said, looking pale as she read from her tablet. The last species to receive Category Red classification was called the Vorthak Collective. They were a hive mind species that tried to absorb other civilizations into their consciousness. What happened to them? Claire asked, though her expression showed she feared the answer. Complete annihilation, Lisa replied. The Council destroyed their home system and every colony they had established. 12 billion individuals wiped out in a coordinated strike. Ben looked up from his own reading. And before them, there was the Nexari Empire. They were classified Category Red for trying to conquer other species. Same result, total extinction. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many Category Red species have there been? In 3,000 years of Council history, Lisa said, there have been 7. None of them survived. A soft chime announced an incoming message. The wall screen activated, showing the face of Commander Vextar, the insect-like guard leader. Humans, he said in his mechanical voice, you have requested to undergo the gauntlet. The Council has agreed to this ancient protocol. You have 7 days to prepare. What exactly does the gauntlet involve? Jake asked. 3 tests, Vextar replied. First, a diplomatic challenge where you must resolve a complex interspecies conflict. Second, a military simulation against superior forces. Third, a moral evaluation where you must choose between your own benefit and the greater good. Who will take these tests? Claire asked. Your current team plus any additional personnel Earth wishes to send. Maximum team size is 8 individuals. After Vextar signed off, Jake immediately contacted Earth through their secure communication channel. Back on Earth, President Carter was meeting with her advisors when Jake's message arrived. They want us to send our best people for something called the Gauntlet, she told the assembled group. 3 tests that will supposedly prove whether humanity deserves to survive. It's obviously a trap, General Hayes declared. They'll make the tests impossible to pass, then use our failure as justification for genocide. Maybe, the president replied, but what choice do we have? If we refuse, they'll attack anyway. Secretary Rodriguez leaned forward. Who would we send? These tests sound like they require different kinds of expertise. Dr. Webb consulted her files. For the diplomatic challenge, we need someone who understands alien psychology. Dr. Amy Foster from the Interspecies Communication Project would be ideal. For the military test, General Hayes added reluctantly, Commander Rick Davis is our best tactical mind. He's the one who developed our asymmetric warfare doctrines. And for the moral test, Secretary Rodriguez suggested, we need someone who represents the best of human nature. What about engineer Kate Wilson? She spent her career developing technology to help people in crisis situations. President Carter nodded. Send them all. And God help us. 3 days later, the additional team members arrived at Nexus Prime. Dr. Amy Foster was a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent years studying alien communication patterns. Commander Rick Davis was tall and thin, with a mind that saw every situation as a puzzle to be solved. Engineer Kate Wilson was practical and direct, someone who believed that any problem could be fixed if you worked hard enough. Jake briefed them on what they had learned about the Council and the tests they would face. The diplomatic test worries me most, Amy said. We don't really understand how these alien species think or what motivates them. One wrong word could doom us all. Rick was more optimistic. The military simulation might actually work in our favor. If they expect us to fight like other species, our unpredictability could be an advantage. Kate frowned at her notes. The moral test is the wild card. What do aliens consider moral behavior? Their values might be completely different from ours. Lisa had been researching the Council's history. I found something interesting. The Gauntlet has only been attempted 5 times in Council history. 4 species failed and were destroyed, but 1 succeeded. Which one? Jake asked. The Etherians, Lisa replied, pointing to data on her screen. They were classified Category Red about 1,500 years ago for being too aggressive in their territorial expansion. They passed the Gauntlet and their classification was changed to Category Orange, controlled integration into galactic society. What are they like now? Claire asked. They're one of the most respected council members, Lisa said, but they're also heavily restricted. They can only travel in certain areas of the galaxy, their population is monitored, and they have to get permission for any major technological developments. Ben shook his head. So even if we succeed, we become prisoners in our own star system. Better than being dead, Jake replied grimly. That night, as the humans tried to sleep, they were unaware that across the galaxy, alien civilizations were making their own preparations. The arthropod Keth Mori were loading troop transports. The gaseous Nebulan Confederacy was charging their planet-killing weapons. The machine intelligence known as the Synthesis was calculating the optimal deployment patterns for maximum efficiency in genocide. But on a remote monitoring station at the edge of the galaxy, other aliens were detecting something that would change everything. Signals from beyond their known space approaching fast and carrying energy signatures unlike anything they had seen before. The galaxy was about to face a threat that would make humanity's Category Red classification seem like a minor concern. On Earth, Colonel Steve Morgan led a black operations team through a hidden alien monitoring station they had discovered in Antarctica. The technology inside was beyond human understanding, but one thing was clear. The aliens had been studying humanity for decades, preparing for the day they might need to destroy them. Sir, one of his specialists called out, you need to see this. On an alien computer screen, Morgan saw detailed analysis of human military tactics, psychological profiles of world leaders, and something that made his blood run cold, targeting data for every major city on Earth. They've been planning this for years, he said quietly. The moment they decided we were dangerous, they started figuring out how to kill us all. As he spoke, alerts began flashing on the alien monitoring equipment. Something was happening at the edge of the galaxy, something that was making the alien devices activate automatically. Back on Nexus Prime, Jake Sullivan stood at his window, looking out at the massive space station that held his species' fate in its metallic hands. Tomorrow the gauntlet would begin. Tomorrow humanity would have its chance to prove it deserved to survive. He just hoped they were ready for what was coming. The gauntlet chamber was the largest space Jake had ever seen inside Nexus Prime. The walls stretched up so high they disappeared into darkness, and the floor was made of some kind of material that seemed to absorb sound. Around the edges of the room sat hundreds of alien observers, representatives from dozens of different species who had come to watch humanity's trial. Hi, Arbiter. Zalenth's crystal form pulsed with pale light as she addressed the 8 humans standing in the center of the chamber. The gauntlet consists of 3 trials. Each will test different aspects of your species' nature. Failure in any trial means failure overall. Commander Vextar stepped forward, his insect-like arms manipulating controls on a device Jake couldn't identify. The first trial is diplomatic. You will be presented with a real conflict between 2 council species. Your task is to resolve it without violence and in a way that both sides can accept. The chamber around them shimmered and changed. Suddenly, the humans found themselves standing in what looked like a courtroom, facing 2 groups of very different aliens. On the left were the Caltharans, massive creatures that looked like armored bears with 6 arms each. Their representative, War Chief Gorthak, stood nearly 3 meters tall and wore what appeared to be battle armor covered in scars. His voice sounded like grinding stone when he spoke. The Malori have stolen our ancient hunting grounds, he declared, pointing a clawed hand at the other group. For 2,000 years, the Caltharan people have hunted the crystal fields of Sector 7. Now these creatures claim ownership based on some ancient treaty we never signed. On the right were the Malori, beings that looked like walking flowers with multiple colorful petals instead of faces. Their speaker, someone called Bloomsinger Ethel, responded in a voice like wind chimes. The Caltharans speak of hunting, but they mean slaughter. They have destroyed entire crystal formations that took centuries to grow. Their presence poisons the very essence of those sacred spaces. Ambassador Claire Johnson stepped forward, feeling the weight of both species' anger. Can you explain the exact nature of this conflict? What are these crystal fields? War Chief Gorthak's armor plates rattled as he moved. The crystal fields are where our young warriors prove themselves. For generations, they have hunted the crystal beasts that live there. It is our tradition, our way of life. Bloomsinger Ethel's petals shifted colors, showing what the humans had learned was a sign of distress. The crystal beasts are not mere animals. They are living artwork, creatures of pure beauty that sing to the cosmos. The Caltharans kill them for sport and trophies. Dr. Amy Foster spoke up using her training in alien psychology. War Chief Gorthak, what would happen to your people if they could not hunt in these fields? The massive alien's eyes, small and red in his armored face, seemed to dim. Our young would have no way to prove their worth. They would remain children forever, unable to take mates or lead clans. Our society would collapse within a generation. And Bloomsinger Ethel, Amy continued, what happens to your people if the hunting continues? The flower-like being's petals drooped. The crystal songs grow weaker each year. Soon our meditation practices will fail, and we will lose our connection to the cosmic harmony. Our souls will wither and die. Kate Wilson, the engineer, studied the problem like a technical challenge. So both species need the same resource, but for completely different reasons. The Caltharans need to hunt the crystal beasts, and the Malori need them to remain alive and singing. Exactly, said Commander Rick Davis, his tactical mind already working on solutions. But what if there was a way for both things to happen? Jake looked at his team, seeing understanding dawn on their faces. This was the kind of problem humans were good at solving, finding creative alternatives when everyone else saw only conflict. We need more information, Lisa said. How large are these crystal fields? How many crystal beasts are there? What's their reproduction cycle? The holographic display shifted, showing a star map with several highlighted systems. War Chief Gorthak manipulated the controls with surprising gentleness for such a massive creature. The fields span 17 systems, he explained. Each system contains between 50 and 200 individual crystal beasts depending on the season. Bloomsinger Ethel added information about the creature's life cycles. They reproduce every 7 years, but only in certain systems where the cosmic harmonics are strongest. Young beasts take 12 years to mature and begin singing. Kate suddenly smiled. What if the hunting was rotational? Different systems at different times, allowing some areas to recover while others are used. The Caltharans could hunt in systems where the crystal beasts are old enough to provide a real challenge, Rick suggested, while leaving the breeding systems completely protected. War Chief Gorthak's armor plates shifted, a sign of interest. This could work. Our young warriors need challenge, not easy kills. Older crystal beasts are more dangerous, better tests of skill. But Bloomsinger Ethel's petals turn darker colors. Even old crystal beasts contribute to the cosmic song. Their voices are deep and rich with wisdom. Amy had an idea. What if the hunting could be done in a way that preserved the song? Not killing the beasts, but challenging them in some other way? Claire picked up the thought. Like a test of skill that doesn't end in death. The Caltharans could prove their worth by successfully tracking, confronting, and then releasing the crystal beasts. Impossible, War Chief Gorthak rumbled. How does one prove victory without taking a trophy? Ben, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. What if the trophy was something the beast willingly gave? Something that proved the encounter happened but didn't require killing? The hologram shifted again, showing detailed images of the crystal beasts. They were beautiful creatures like living sculptures made of colored glass, with intricate patterns covering their bodies. Kate studied the images, these pattern formations on their bodies. They look unique to each individual. What if the trophy was a recording of the beast's song or an image of its unique patterns, something that proved the encounter but left the creature alive? Bloomsinger Ethel's petals brightened. The songs? Yes, recorded songs could be treasured. They would carry the essence of the encounter without requiring death. War Chief Gorthak was silent for long moments. Finally, his armor plates shifted in what the humans had learned was a sign of deep thought. This is unusual, he said. But perhaps true courage is shown by facing a crystal beast and choosing not to kill it. Perhaps the greatest trophy is proof that one could have taken a life, but chose to preserve it instead. The two alien species began discussing details, working out schedules and territories with growing enthusiasm. The humans watched in amazement as their simple idea transformed from conflict resolution into something both sides seemed excited about. But before they could celebrate, the chamber shifted again. Now they found themselves on what appeared to be the bridge of a starship, facing a massive holographic display showing an incoming battle fleet. Commander Vextar's voice echoed around them. The second trial begins now. You face the Zephyrian Third Battle Fleet. 12 heavy cruisers, 48 destroyers, and 200 fighter craft. You have 1 human destroyer and a crew of 50. Your objective is to survive for 1 hour. Rick Davis looked at the tactical display and whistled softly. Those are terrible odds. Jake took the captain's chair, feeling the weight of the simulation around him. Then we better not fight fair. The bridge came alive as the human crew took their positions. The Zephyrian fleet approached in perfect formation, their ships moving in coordinated patterns that looked almost like a dance. They fight like they do everything else, Amy observed, studying the enemy formation on her screen. Perfectly organized, completely predictable. That's their weakness, Rick said, his fingers flying over the tactical controls. They expect us to follow the same rules they do. Jake smiled grimly. Then let's break some rules. The battle that followed would become legendary among the alien observers. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, the humans used every trick they could think of. They used the station's own defensive systems against the attackers, fired weapons at angles that made no tactical sense but confused enemy targeting computers, and executed maneuvers that violated every principle of space combat the aliens had ever seen. When the simulation ended, the Zephyrian fleet had retreated rather than continue fighting an enemy they couldn't predict or understand. But the hardest test was yet to come. The third trial began without warning. The chamber around the humans shimmered and changed once more, and they found themselves standing on what appeared to be a barren planet under a red sky. In front of them stretched a vast mining operation, with massive machines digging into the ground and processing stations converting raw ore into refined materials. High Arbiter Zalenth's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The final trial. Before you lies the richest deposit of rare minerals ever discovered. These resources could power your civilization for 1,000 years, making humanity the wealthiest species in the galaxy. Jake looked around at his team, seeing the same confusion in their faces that he felt. "What's the test?" "Look beyond the mining operation," Commander Vexitar's mechanical voice replied. They walked forward, and as they crested a small hill, they saw something that made their hearts sink. Beyond the mining site was a refugee camp stretching as far as the eye could see. Thousands of alien beings, men, women, and children from a dozen different species, lived in makeshift shelters and tents. Dr. Amy Foster approached the edge of the camp, where a creature that looked like a walking tree was tending to several smaller beings that might have been its children. "What happened here?" she asked gently. The tree being's voice was like rustling leaves. "Our sun is dying. Our worlds grow cold and dark. We came here hoping to find new homes, but this is the only planet that can support our different life forms together." Lisa walked among the refugees, her medical training drawing her to those who seemed sick or injured. What she found broke her heart. These weren't just homeless aliens. They were the last survivors of multiple civilizations whose stars had failed. "How many of you are there?" she asked an elderly creature that looked like a crystal spider. 43,000 survivors from 7 different worlds. The being replied in a voice like breaking glass. "We are all that remains of our peoples." Kate Wilson studied the mining operation with her engineer's eye. The extraction process was thorough and efficient, and completely incompatible with supporting life on the planet's surface. "If the mining continues," she said quietly to Jake, "this planet will be uninhabitable within months. The atmospheric processors will poison the air and water." Ben looked at the tactical situation with growing understanding. "So we have to choose. Take the resources that could make humanity rich and powerful, or leave them so these refugees can survive." Claire felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. As a diplomat, she understood what this choice meant not just for humanity, but for their relationship with the galactic community. Rick studied the mining equipment. There has to be another way, some compromise that lets both things happen. But as they explored further, it became clear that there wasn't. The mineral deposits were directly beneath the refugee settlement. To extract them would require destroying the entire area where the survivors had built their temporary homes. Jake gathered his team in a circle, away from the refugees and the mining operation. "This is it. This is the real test. Do we choose ourselves or them?" "The logical choice is obvious," Amy said, but her voice was heavy. "Those minerals could solve Earth's energy problems forever. We could build ships, explore the galaxy, maybe even help other species in trouble. But at what cost?" Lisa asked. "These people have already lost everything. If we take this planet too, we're condemning them to death." Kate looked at the mining equipment again. "I keep thinking there has to be a solution. Some way to extract the minerals without destroying the surface." "I've run the calculations," Ben said quietly. "The extraction process requires too much surface disruption. There's no way to do both." Rick was studying the refugee camp through binoculars. "There are children down there, families. They're not just statistics, they're people trying to survive." Claire looked at each of her teammates. "So what do we do, vote?" Jake shook his head. "No vote. We all have to agree or we don't do it at all." For long minutes they stood in silence, each wrestling with the choice. Finally Lisa spoke. "I became a doctor to help people. All people. I can't be part of something that would destroy these refugees even if it helps humanity." Amy nodded. "My life's work has been about understanding other species, learning to communicate with them. How can I choose my own species over theirs?" Kate looked at the mining equipment one more time, then turned away. "I've spent my career building things that help people in crisis. These people are in crisis. I can't abandon them." Rick sighed deeply. "As a military man, I'm supposed to put my own people first. But what's the point of making humanity strong if we lose our humanity in the process?" Ben and Claire both nodded their agreement. Finally, all eyes turned to Jake. As the leader, the decision was ultimately his. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who would never know about this choice. He thought about the opportunities that the minerals could provide, the problems they could solve, the future they could build. Then he looked down at the refugee camp, at the children playing between the tents, at the families holding each other against the cold of an alien world. "We leave the planet to them," he said quietly. "No mining, no extraction. They need this place more than we need those minerals." The moment he spoke the words, the simulation around them began to fade. They found themselves back in the great chamber of Nexus Prime, surrounded by hundreds of alien observers. High Arbiter Xalanth pulsed with bright light. The trials are complete. The council will now deliberate. Hours passed. The humans waited in their quarters, knowing that the fate of their entire species hung in the balance. Finally, they were called back to the council chamber. The great room was packed with representatives from every member species. The tension was so thick Jake could almost feel it pressing against his skin. The results of the gauntlet, Xalanth announced, have created unprecedented debate within the council. Commander Vexitar stepped forward. In the diplomatic trial, you showed creativity and innovation, finding solutions where none seemed possible. However, your methods challenged established protocols and created uncertainty about future interactions. The electric jellyfish being Judge Nethriel floated closer. In the military trial, you demonstrated exactly the kind of unpredictable tactics that make your species so dangerous. You cannot be counted upon to fight fairly or honorably. Jake felt his heart sinking, but the shadow creature judge spoke next. In the moral trial, you chose sacrifice over gain, other species over your own benefit. This shows both admirable character and concerning irrationality. Xalanth's light grew brighter. You have proven that humanity possesses both the virtues and the dangers we identified. You are creative but chaotic, brave but unpredictable, moral but irrational. So what's our classification? Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. After much debate, Xalanth replied, the council has reached an unprecedented decision. We are creating a new classification never before used in our history. The chamber fell silent. You are hereby classified as Category Human, the crystal being announced. A designation that acknowledges your unique nature, dangerous to the established order but potentially essential to the galaxy's survival. Jake didn't understand. What does that mean? Commander Vexistar's mechanical voice carried what almost sounded like respect. It means you will not be contained or destroyed. Instead, you will serve a special role, as the Council's specialist for situations that require unconventional solutions. Our deep space monitors have detected signals from beyond the galaxy, Judge Nethriel explained. Something is approaching that our traditional methods may not be able to handle. We believe your unusual nature may be exactly what we need. Xalanth pulsed with warm light. Welcome to the galactic community, humans, not as subjects or prisoners, but as essential partners in facing the unknown challenges ahead. As the council session ended and the alien representatives began filing out, Jake felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Humanity had survived its trial, but they were still outsiders. Still seen as dangerous, but perhaps that was exactly what they needed to be. Later, as their ship prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Jake stood at the observation deck watching the massive station shrink behind them. Dr. Lisa Martinez joined him. Do you think we made the right choice? She asked. In the final trial, I mean. Jake was quiet for a moment. I think we made the human choice. And maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Someone willing to make the hard decisions even when they don't make sense to everyone else. Category human, Lisa mused. I suppose it fits. As the Horizon entered hyperspace heading back toward Earth with the news that humanity had found its place among the stars, none of them could have imagined the challenges that lay ahead. The signals from beyond the galaxy were getting stronger, and soon they would learn that their real test was just beginning. But for now, humanity had proven something important, that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the right one, and that being unpredictable might be exactly what a predictable galaxy needed to survive.